Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Naisha. I'm the program manager here with the Holding Space Foundation, and I'm very thankful for tonight's workshop. We have Kenya Jones, a licensed clinical social worker and founder of Innovative Therapy Works, a behavioral health practice providing psychotherapy, clinical supervision, and professional training. She specializes in supporting adults navigating identity development, anxiety, relational challenges, and life transitions through a culturally responsive and trauma-informed approach. As a queer clinician, Kenya is committed to delivering affirming care for LGBTQ plus individuals and advancing inclusive mental health services. In addition to clinical work, she mentors emerging clinicians and serves as a clinical supervisor for graduate social work students. She is also the founder of Therapist Night Out, a community-centered experience designed for fostering connection and wellness among mental health professionals. Kenya, we're very grateful to have you. This is actually our second time. If you visit our YouTube page, you'll see Kenya was with us about 2 years ago on a panel of three. So we're very grateful for you again, Kenya.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody had a good day. Good to see everybody. So, this is our workshop on coming out later in life, and I think it's a very important topic. It's very needed. It's Pride Month for one, so happy Pride to everyone who celebrates. We appreciate all of the allies and support systems for individuals in the LGBTQ plus population. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen and share the presentation, and we'll kind of go through, we'll talk, and then I think there will be time for questions at the end, but feel free to use the chat and, interact, and we'll watch it and kind of interact as we go too. And then at the end, I'm curious if anybody, like she said, if you're willing to share if you want to share, if you are a part of the community, like your coming out story, if you feel comfortable, I think that would be uh, impactful, supportive to anyone that might be watching or present that, you can help to feel a little bit more comfortable. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share and we'll get started. Okay. Okay. Nisha, is it present on your screen? Can you see?
Yes, I see the next slide as well. I'm not sure how do you want us to
Okay. Hold on. Let me do that. I think it's the way this PowerPoint is set up.
I'm wondering if it's because you have it in do you have it in presenter mode? I haven't worked
Please.
in PowerPoint in a while. Yeah, do that.
Is that better?
Yes, there we go. All set.
Oh, why? And it's on my other screen. I'm gonna just minimize that. Okay, perfect. All right, is that good? Everybody's good? All
All
right,
set.
so perfect. So this is our LGBTQ plus life shift, navigating coming out as an adult. I'm Kenya Jones, clinical director and psychotherapist, as Naisha stated. So let's go ahead and get started. So for tonight, the goals are really for getting a better understanding of like some of the history within the community, any common emotions were coming out later in life, exploring how like family, cultural relationships, and the community kind of shapes decisions about coming out. And then at the end, I have I researched some resources, some gender affirming LGBTQ plus support that we can talk about, and that's local and national support for the community. Okay. So the goal really is not about telling people when to come out or how they should come out for tonight, but it's more just about talking through some common challenges, kind of exploring why the stigma is about coming out, and what are some of the ways that we can help support individuals in the community. So just in my own experience too, like, and even working with clients, like a big thing that I've seen is shame, stigma, family dynamics, religious trauma, things like that. So many people come out after marriage, after raising children, after retirement, after even, breaking away from religious affiliation. So maybe sometimes people come out after they have tried to do what's quote unquote the right way. So that might be, family expectations, that could be religious expectations, and suppressing how you might really truly feel, or, trying to live up to some standard, or later on, after raising a family or having children, because you don't want to uh, what people may say influence or improperly influence, or later you feel later on down the line in retirement, you feel like, oh, I can truly be myself, I don't have to hide anymore, it's just me, I've raised my children, things like that. Or even in certain religions where we know it is not fully accepted, or you may feel like an outcast, or you may feel just not accepted, so there are a lot of different things. Or even after a significant life transition, so that might mean maybe we relocate, right? Maybe we move out of town and we go somewhere that no one knows us, so we can fully be ourselves, and we can be open, and you can be out and hold your partner's hand and show the affection that you've been wanting to, but you don't feel safe enough to do, maybe in your hometown. So some of those things play a part in how we show up, authentically, right? So just kind of want to talk through some of those things because they are affecting, the community. So on to the next slide. So why people wait? Some things that are common factors: religious teaching. So we touched a little bit on that. Family expectations. So if we think about family, our parents, and some things that are inherited when we come into this world, and you already are expected to be a certain way. You have your parents who have a dream for you, and they have, expectations a lot of times. And sometimes we have to navigate grief of maybe disappointing family, or maybe letting them down and not really living up to what they thought we would be before we ever had a decision for ourselves. So that that can be overwhelming to a person because we are so concerned with not letting anybody down, not disappointing, and not being afraid to live out loud, being afraid to be ourselves authentically, and our personalities, and all that comes with it, because it's different. Everybody's personality and gender expression, even gender identity, and how we want to express ourselves is different. It's not always it doesn't always fit into societal norms, right? So there's always, that to consider when you're thinking, is this the right time to come out? Is this, will I be accepted? Will there be questions? If I have siblings, will I be blamed for the way that they turn out? I've seen, that happen too. It's like, oh, well, you're in the community, so such and such is going to follow in your footsteps, things like that. So you have a lot of pressures when you're thinking about what's best for me. And it's not always about, well, what do I want? We have to consider so many other people's voices before our own, so that is, definitely a barrier to coming out. And then fear of rejection, right? So later on we'll get into some history and thinking about, like, okay, in the 19 hundreds, early on, in the 1900s, it definitely was not okay to come out, and even just more recently, within the last 10 years or so, legislation when, marriage, same-sex marriage was just, not too long ago, legalized, and things like that, and the stigma behind it, and even queerness and, same-sex attraction being in the DSM-5 from a mental health standpoint, like, right, being categorized as a mental illness, things like that would definitely keep a person closeted, because, okay, now maybe my safety is at risk too. Is it safe for me to live out loud, for me to walk down the street and hold my partner's hand? Maybe not. Maybe, even if we think about even in recent years, like this month, I can't remember the exact year offhand, but if we think even back to the Orlando, hate crimes pulse, right? When people are just being themselves, they're just having a good time, and boom, tragedy strikes for what? Just being in a space that was created for you, but someone has a problem with it. So, of course, I might not be comfortable with fully expressing myself and saying, yes, I'm a lesbian. Yes, I'm, queer. Yes, I'm trans, because that might mean I might not make it home to my family tonight, right? So, of course, I probably have to be very secretive and selective about who I share that information with. Can I and people are being outed. So that might not be safe for me to do that. So just all of those considerations, and lack of representation. I'm so glad that I get to do the work that I do. And the reason why I do it is because, like, I also noticed that, there were not a lot of therapy spaces in, just targeted towards queer people 100%. So my practice is for the queer population. And I'm proud to say 100% of my clients are in the community. And so when they are seeking out safe services, right, they're looking for representation. People seeking me out specifically because I am African American and because I'm queer. And because they don't have to code switch, they don't have to, they don't have to switch up anything. We can talk about everything, and nothing is off limits. And I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to shun them. I don't filter. I don't, filter them or try to control what they share, how they share. They can talk as open and freely as they want to. And then when we get into spaces where we feel safe, right? So on here it says the workplace discrimination. That's also a thing. You can't always fully be yourself. There's not always a lot of protection from discrimination, even though it's supposed to be. And we know that a lot of times, and no dig to any HR professionals, but sometimes they are doing what's in the best interest of the company and not so much the employee. So discrimination still happens. There's still, hate and, just not safe spaces all the time in workplaces, and even in medical settings as well. My goal also as a clinician of color and a queer clinician is to, at some point help to even educate and make more providers, medical providers, feel confident and comfortable and competent enough to provide queer, gender affirming care to everyone, right? Because that's so important. Coming out, think about, if you're not sure if you're a doctor or whoever, it understands you, can respect your pronouns, willing to, help you and treat you, even though they may not agree or understand your lifestyle, your identity. That's important. It's so important to just have someone who is affirming, outside of, whatever religious beliefs or whatever, but just as a human being, just treating everyone as a human being, and providing that care is so important. So I just think all of that cultural norms, everything is not always accepted. If you're too this or too that, either you're too flamboyant or you're too masculine, you can never really fit into the mold fully. So I think that, it's just so important to kind of note all of these things that become barriers to people really living authentically or waiting a long time before they're like, okay, now I just don't care anymore. I just want to be free. Like I've held myself and I've suppressed, my true self for long enough. Like I just want to live. And I think everyone deserves to live freely and authentically, because it's just so freeing to just be able to just be you. whatever that looks like, right? So those are some common factors that I've seen and through research. See are why people wait. So as we were talking about history, right? So historical, like 1962. And this was a fun fact that I actually just recently learned. Illinois became the first state to decriminalize same-sex relationships. So wow, even that's still not that long ago to me. I mean, that's not even 100 years ago. So, and then just in 1973, uh, homosexuality was removed from the DSM, which is the diagnostic manual that we use as clinicians to diagnose, mental illness. So, wow, right? Like that is something, right? Like that's alarming. That wasn't that long ago. Um, and don't even understand or know why that was ever in the DSM file, in the DSM, but it was. And we've had to deal with that stigma too, to be seen as perverted or something is wrong with you. Um, that certainly would keep a person closeted because now okay, so you're saying I'm crazy, I have a mental illness, something is wrong with me, something is wrong with my makeup and the way that I was brought in, the way that I was born, that's wrong, right? So that definitely would keep me from saying anything to anyone. Okay, and so we see between the 1980s and 90s, of course, we have the AIDS and HIV epidemic, right? So then there's a stigma for mostly, men, but everyone, right? So then that, of course, is going to have an impact on people being authentic and being honest about where you are, with your sexuality. Yeah, that is alarming. And then being kind of accused of spreading things and being affected and being perverse, like I said, that would keep me closeted for sure. And then things being in 2003, as we can see, this Supreme Court, the ruling was it I guess it sorry guys, same-sex activity was illegal in multiple states before 2003. And then in 2015, same-sex marriage was legalized nationwide. And then we see here in 2022, sorry, I have to move this. And so we had federal protections for same-sex and interracial marriages. So all of these things are not too long ago. When you think about equality, right? Equality of the queer community, that will have a big impact on whether a person would want to come out, right? If you're thinking like, okay, I can't even marry the love of my life, what's the point? Like, I want to have a family. I want to be like everybody else with the American dream, right? But I have a system and a society that tells me I don't deserve that. I'm not equal. I can't have that dream for myself because it doesn't look like, you know, the norm, whatever that is, right? What even is normal at this point, right? So if we take that into perspective, right? Let's say if you are 60 today, that means you were about almost 50 when the same sex legalization happened, right? So I mean, you spent 50 years of your life not even able to express yourself and love who you wanted to love out loud. Wow, that's big. Like that is half of your life, right? Like you have more probably, right? I'm not the creator, but most likely you have more time behind you than in front of you, right? And that whole time you couldn't even, love, or you could love, but you could not outwardly express that love in a way that would be publicly accepted, like marriage, right? You had to, hide, or they had to be your little friend at the family function, or or your special friend, or or whatever, right? Culturally, um, you could not profess your love in the way that others were able to. And so that to me would be sad. That is sad to me, to know that people experience that even, before my time, like people experience just that great amount of suppression. And if you were 50, if you're 55, then you grew up in a time where the AIDS epidemic hit. You were, in your 30s by the time marriage was legalized. That still is, you're up into your adulthood, and you would have gone a great stretch of time before you could express that love, and that would have an impact on me as well. And I'm sure it has had an impact on a lot of people who just wanted to marry the love of their lives, but couldn't. So but there is hope because now there that's not a thing, anymore. But there's still, injustices. There's still discrimination. There's still inequalities. Even today, things are being taken away. Rights are being challenged. Right. So there's still a lot, at stake. But our community is very resilient. And I'm proud, to know that and to be a part of the community. We are very resilient, even in the face of adversity. So support. I'm here to give some hope and support that even if you are not comfortable coming out, or if you came out later in life, it's okay. It's really no set time. There's no perfect way to come out. There's no perfect scenario. There's no right or wrong. But it's important to lean into your community. It's important to, not do it alone. Like, I'm so privileged to get to walk with people on their journey, to help them through navigating difficult conversations, because it can be very difficult to express, like, hey, I feel like maybe I'm going to be cut off by my family. That's the thing too, right? In certain cultures, like, you are cut off, disowned. You may be reliant on family for financial support as well. I've had students and young people, even younger people, that's like, oh, I can't tell my parents because they're gonna cut me off, things like that. And even older adults that want to, you know, keep a relationship with their parents. That's a big thing. Like, no, I know they don't agree with this. They love me, but they'll never accept my lifestyle. And that's hard. It's hard, but there is support. There's so many organizations that provide support, even here locally, nationally. I definitely encourage, therapy and building your own community, because sometimes we have to create a chosen family. That's a big thing, right? We have to create. Sometimes it's not, what's the right way to say? Sometimes our family, or like our origin and the people that we come from, just are not able, to be the support that we need, whether they choose not to be, to show up, or they don't know how to. And then another thing is, oh, before we do this, another thing is we're going to talk a little bit about, how grief plays a part too, um, in acceptance, right? But we're going to go ahead and get into this quick video. And it's a quick, cute video about coming out later in life. I thought it was appropriate for this meeting today. So first, I'm going to make sure the sound is working first. Let's see if we can hear. And can we hear? Can you hear?
No.
No.
Nope.
Okay. Okay. Show me. Oh,
You just stop share and then
oh,
share again. In the lower right hand corner, it'll say share sound.
okay. Okay.
Tell me if you see
I
that.
see it.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect. Okay. Now let me see.
Bonobos was founded on
Okay, we
making
can hear. So
lots of
we'll after
perfect
that
children.
commercial.
So, here's your reminder. Life's too short.
And we're back now with our GMA Out Loud series. We're honoring the members of the LGBTQ plus community who are coming out a little later in life. Like a fine wine, some things get better with age. And for the seasoned members of the LGBTQ plus community, stepping proudly into your identity later in life can open up a whole new world.
It's very common, actually, for older people in the LGBTQ community to come out late in life. Often when we were younger, there was just no space. There was no openness to coming out. And one of the basic misconceptions is that LGBTQ elders don't exist because they are invisible.
SAGE, an organization that advocates on behalf of the LGBTQ elders, estimates that by 2030 there will be 7 million queer people who are 50 and older in the U.S.
It's everyone's birthright to live in our gender. And to know that and not be able to live that, it's like a living death.
Decorated author and poet Diana Getch documenting the pre-transition period of her life in a memoir titled This Body I Wore.
I realized that if I don't write this down, I don't think many people will. And we were trans and didn't know it, so many of us. And then so many of us never made it out of the 20th century.
Getch says it was not until around age 50 that she felt she could safely transition and live in her gender full time.
I mean, as much elation as we have, the greater, we're more relieved as well.
And for farmers and activists Donna Deere and Paulette Green, they are celebrating 50 years as a couple. But it was only 10 years ago that they were officially able to tie the knot.
It has always just been a constant relationship that has been, that has flourished.
Together, the pair cultivating a passion for conservation and community service. The Maryland property they preserve, Mount Pleasant Acres Farms, once belonging to the family of Harriet Tubman and was a piece of the Underground Railroad.
Be true to yourself. Don't take anything for granted.
Donna and Paulette's lives now portrayed in a short documentary film called The Aunties, as they are affectionately known.
It has inspired other people that have seen the documentary to become more of themselves and to finding out more about themselves, as a whole. Because who we are has always just been very natural to us.
Bless you all.
Me. Okay. Sharing that. Okay. Now, why did it not? There we go. No, wait a minute. Wait. That's not what I want to do. Okay. No. Technical difficulties, guys.
It's okay. What I really appreciated about the clip was just the inclusivity of everyone. As you just get to your next slide, the inclusivity of everyone, it just brings so much joy. And I'm familiar with Sage. They have an office in New York, and I remember I applied for a job there years ago, but obviously didn't get it. But just having that organization available, I'm very grateful that it's available to the community. And going back to understanding the stats in 2030, seeing that we'll have, I think you said over 50 million. I was very surprised to see that stat. Like, wow, I'm grateful that it's available to us.
Right. No, I agree. I didn't know much about Sage before, but they're definitely on the resource list
Mm-hmm.
that I'm going to share because I think that's amazing that so much support is out there for the community, and I want to make sure everybody is aware of it as well. So let me keep us rolling. Okay, there we go. Okay, so can we all see? Can we see?
Yep. Yep. I think is going to enlarge.
There we
Just
go. Okay.
change that to the slideshow.
I don't know why it keeps doing that. No, I'm gonna get that right. Okay, I forgot which one. Oh, I know what it was. I'm sorry, guys. Now, why is it? Okay, I'm not sure why it's giving me such a big problem. But you guys can see this next slide thing. I hate
Yeah, and
that.
I think you may have to pause because it's on a timer. Or maybe it was on timer.
Okay, I don't know why.
Wow,
Is
the
that
slideshow. Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, there we
okay?
go.
Sheesh. Okay. Now we're just gonna go back just a little bit. Just to talk about just a few things that are commonly seen in the therapeutic space. So sexual orientation, for people coming out later in life, sexual orientation, trying to figure out what is it that how do I want to identify, right? Gender identity, authenticity, what does that look like? So often we're trying to figure out, um, am I lesbian? Am I bisexual? Am I, queer? Um, am I trans? Do I want to explore gender affirming procedures? Do I want to explore hormone therapy? How do I want to show up? If I've been suppressed my whole life, but maybe as a child growing up, maybe I felt a bit of what we call in the therapeutic space gender dysphoria, where, like, how I was born does not really match up to how I really feel and how I want to, identify. So those challenges too come up when we think about coming out later in life, because maybe when I come out, I want to be totally different, right? And how is that going to be accepted? How is that going to, is my family going to accept me? If I want to transition partially or fully, how am I going to navigate those conversations? How am I going to navigate, maybe I want to have a top surgery, right? Maybe I want to explore hormones. Maybe I want, if I'm a female, maybe I want facial hair now, or if I'm a male, maybe I'm okay with taking hormones, and maybe I'm okay with growing breast, or maybe I want to have bottom surgery. Is that okay? Is that safe for me to do or say or express to people around me? What would happen, if I showed up and now I'm trans, and that's a whole nother, conversation that we'll, get into as well, as far as, special considerations for transgender who definitely have safety, concerns around being authentic, right? And so when we think about coming out later in life, that involves relationship changes too. So maybe I'm married and maybe I'm tired of pretending. Maybe I'm tired of forcing a narrative that doesn't feel authentic to me. So how do I navigate that? Do I stay for the image, or do I say, actually, I'm gay. Like, I want to explore that. I'm sorry, that's crushing, right? Like that crushes a dream, that crushes a reality. But those are things that happen. And so in those realities, then we have transitions, right? Parenting transitions, right? Now, maybe we are going to go our separate ways, but now we have to co-parent. We have to figure out how to do the best for the children that are involved, and do, the best that we can within this new normal, and managing any family conflict that might come along with that, or not understanding, or, judgment. to say, oh, y'all are not the picture perfect family anymore. Like, this is different, right? So there are a lot of things that keep us from really living authentically because there's a lot at stake. There's a lot to lose, right? There's a lot to lose, but then there's a lot to gain. So there's a conflict that happens, right? You think about, oh my God, I'm losing. And when we talk about grief, I'm losing this part of my life, this persona. I might, be losing friendships. I might be losing family members. I'm losing time, that I maybe spent hiding, right? Like, and there's grief around that too. I'm grieving missed opportunities that maybe if I had been able to be myself, maybe I would have went out for. Maybe I'm grieving time missed with being with my person that I could have been living authentically, but now, because I didn't feel comfortable, I missed out on time. I missed out on a lot by just not feeling safe to, be my authentic self, right? So, like to that point, right? The duality of experiencing grief and liberation at the same time. That's a note that I put there, right? Because I wanted to talk about that. Like, what is that? That means two things can be true, right? Like, I can be totally happy for myself because now I get to be free. I get to live. I get to go out and, just be my authentic self. But then there's impact. There is, maybe I'm discriminated against. So maybe I don't get certain opportunities for being myself. Maybe I lose family connections. Maybe I don't feel as close or connected to people that I once felt connected to because now that I'm being myself, you don't know me no more. Or I can't really fully share all of me with you. That has been a common thing too. Like once I share, I've had clients that once, they fully live in their truth. Well, now I don't feel connected to family because if they don't accept me, I can't share that part with you. I can't share, my love life and how happy I am. I can't come to you like I would if I was, with your preferred gender. If there's some conflict in my relationship and I want a listening ear and I want my mom to tell me it's going to be okay. Well, if you don't agree, I can't lean on you for that, right? So there's grief associated with not having support from the people that you would want to lean on. And then, of course, religious communities, right? Like, regardless of your background, religious background, you may not have the support in that area either. And then, of course, the years that you spent hiding, because most of the time, by the time you do come out, or from my experience, you're like, man, I wish I'd had done this sooner. Like, oh my God, this feels amazing. Like this is such freedom. Like, oh my God, I want everybody to experience this. So it could be two things are true at the same time where you're like, man, I'm sad for myself, but I'm also so happy for myself and I'm so proud that I'm taking the steps and that I'm embracing who I am and I'm unapologetic about that. And that part is amazing. That's the best feeling ever. When you can just not care about what people think. And that's easier said than done, right? Like we are human. We care about being accepted and being a part of communities and having support. So, that's important for us. So grief, but then also on the flip side of it, like we mentioned earlier, the grief of the people that love you that are going to take a little while to come around to the idea of this revelation that you shared because they have to also dismantle their own expectations of you and they have to go through their own grieving process. And so we want to hold space for them too, but we don't want that also to hinder who we know we truly are either. So we want to give them the space to say, yes, I don't fully understand this. It's going to take me a minute, and all the things. But we want to encourage them to seek out the support that they need to process through that grief. Okay. So we talk about special considerations for transgender. So, of course, we have the medical transition decisions, like we talked about a little bit earlier, financial barriers, family adjustment, because surgery is expensive. If you if you don't have support financially, there are things that when you want to transition, you have to consider medical expenses for surgery, medications, medical care, things like that, and family adjustment where it's new, so people have to meet you where you are and meet that new version of you, how you want to identify, and then everyone else has to catch up, right? So I think coming out later in life has its unique challenges, but you also get to me, you get to define your own experience too when you come out later in life too, because I was in conversations with peers and even clients, and just they express like, well, I didn't have to subscribe to some of the things that the old gays have to, different relationship dynamics and roles and expectations. So coming out later in life, you kind of get to decide how you want to do it, how you want to show up in community with other queer folks. So you don't have to be in a box. So there are some pros, and you get to have your chosen community and family, and you get to do things your way. So it's not all bad, but I wanted to make sure I highlighted some of the challenges that come with coming out, late in life, but then highlighting the support too, right? So support and community building, that is so paramount. You want to be around people that love you, that support you, that are going to hold you up, that, are proud of who they are. So whether that's queer or non-queer individuals, but just people that support who you are becoming, and that can be a listening ear, that can be a resource for you, that understand and will support you and be an ally for you at all times. So of course we're in Georgia, so I wanted to note some of the Atlanta and Georgia resources, but also some nationwide resources as well. So Atlanta Pride. So they are an organization that has a lot of community events, educational events, festivals. They offer social support, wellness, community organizing. So in the Georgia Equity statewide, so they offer advocacy, some legal education, community engagement. Wanted to make sure we noted the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Just if there's a need for that, we just always want to advocate for mental health, because our community is often stigmatized, and we need support. So we need to know how to get it when we do need it. So the Trevor Project as well is also another resource. And then when we look at Southern Fried Queer Pride and PFLAG, that is another support group. So the PFLAG also offers support for families of, LGBTQ plus individuals that will support a parent that, or, older family members, and, just individuals that are struggling with acceptance. I think that's important too. And then the Covenant, I'm sorry for this, the Covenant House of Georgia, that provides housing resources for the LGBTQ plus as well. And so some of the national LGBTQ plus organizations, PFLAG is one, SAGE is one, that Aisha mentioned earlier, the Human Rights Campaign, National LGBTQ plus Task Force. So a lot of advocacy work, resources, programs, community organizing, and social justice resources for the community out there. If you're coming out late and you need to know like where to go, like where you can lean on advocacy, people that support you in the community, or just kind of know what's out there for you. I think these are some great reputable organizations to start with if you are just coming out, or even if you came out later in life, just kind of knowing what's available. Just lean into these resources. I think that would be a good place to start. And then just knowing that, coming out later in life, there's no right or wrong. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you less of a person with confidence. It's just about your comfort when it's right for you. You can't be forced. You can't, you shouldn't be shamed. And it's nothing wrong with coming out late in life. It's a personal choice. So that's what I would like to, leave everyone with tonight.
Thank you, Kenya. Thank you so much. We definitely have room for questions. Does anyone want to ask a question? And if you don't want to share your name publicly, just send it to me and I'll ask, as an anonymous question.
I don't have a question, but I just do want to comment. It was a great presentation. I feel like you hit so many things on the head, or however it's said. I am one of those weird people, so I'll say I'm queer because I do not identify as being gay or lesbian. Although I'm married to a woman, I have been straight the majority of my life. I was married, and so it was a very difficult transition, extremely difficult. Honestly, being someone who grew up in a church, just all the things, like all the things you mentioned. Um, but for me, both my parents are deceased, and then my grandmother passed away. And anybody who has lost their mom, like you're different. That's like I don't have to please anybody, right? And then my
Yeah.
grandmother unfortunately passed away. Um, and my grandmother, she loved my wife. Now, what she thought, she never said whatever. People ask me like, did she know? I'm like, I think she knew. Even though she never said it. And after she passed, I was definitely living my life. I said, everybody else lived their life and they're gone. And so I'm gonna live mine. But it was difficult. My ex is Jamaican, and anybody know about Jamaican and their whole thoughts and processes. And um, but I can say I had therapy just navigating everything that was going on in my life. My boys were very supportive. They're older. My oldest son was like, he joked with me. My middle son was like, Mom, my best friend's mom is like, all the things I was worried about. It was like nothing. Um, but again, I just want to say everything you said was so great. A lot of things you said, my wife, on the other hand, did go through with the family and the religion, and not being supportive or feeling like they were going to be. Um, I think with her first marriage, she didn't even let her mom know till after she was married. She was like she was going to be cut off, and just a lot of things you said, I have heard that she had to navigate. So it was a really great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry about your family, your loss. When I understand that too. My mom passed away when I was a lot younger, and my grandmother too. And I didn't have to deal with like what they thought or felt either. So I'm sure my experience may have been different. Like you said, like I didn't have to hide it from anybody. I was just able to live my life. But I do know that my grandmother would not have approved of it, and I'm sure there would be some opinions, right, from religion and things like that. So
Yeah.
thank you for just kind of affirming that.
I have a question. Dr. Jones, he touched a little bit on, how people grieve after they, come out amongst their family and friends. Do you have any tips or advice on what things have your clients shared anything that they felt was helpful for them when they were dealing with that grief or going through that process?
Dealing with grief of like non-acceptance or
Yeah, like if they were to come out, say, to family and friends, and then like, oh, not be accepted by those family and friends, and then have to, navigate that.
yeah, I mean, honestly, those are things that we definitely discuss in therapy to kind of walk through that grief and self-esteem. That's definitely a thing that we discuss in therapy. Acceptance and commitment therapy is one thing that is helpful with clients that are dealing with families or parents that are not accepting, because what I have seen is that is out of our control. Honestly, just helping them to understand what they can control and what they can't control, and giving their parent and family space to grieve and to process their own feelings. Family therapy is certainly helpful, for having those difficult conversations. And then I would recommend that if their family is open to their family doing their own grief therapy, because honestly, that's not your responsibility to facilitate their grief process.
Thank you for that.
Hi, Patricia. And then after Patricia, I have an anonymous question.
Hi, sorry for being late. I was about
I think we froze.
late, but I'm thankful for the
Froze.
recording. I appreciate all what you've said. I'm learning more about the population because I have family members, my daughter, my oldest daughter, my older sister. And it's not like I guess wasn't educated, didn't know enough. And I guess over the years have learned so much. And my question is, I'm licensed in Oklahoma and Texas as LPC and LCDC intern in Texas. And they have, I think, legislation or something where us licensed professionals have to sign a document stating that we will not, in our sessions, talk about gender. I guess if they want to go through the procedure of changing their form to male, female, female, male, whatever, stuff like that, we're not allowed to talk about stuff like that. If someone were to come to you to say that, it's like we couldn't legally keep our license if we were to get out, to steer them in the direction where they need to go. And I'm just wondering, is that something that you have heard about, experienced, heard other people talk about, as far as, with all this stuff that's going on in this I don't even want to talk about it, but just in general, it's like, what do you see coming from all of this and the harm that it's doing to a lot of people, which I feel like is increasing the suicide rate in some area, in some age groups, because of those powers that be are trying to stample on their rights.
Okay. Not familiar, honestly, because I'm in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also licensed in Michigan and Florida. So this is the first that I've heard that you're not able to document their desire to transition or gender affirming procedures or care. Honestly, I'm not aware of that. I think we had a question in the chat that asked if you are describing a state level policy or at the company level.
Me?
Yes, Patricia.
State, not in the policy. It's the state of Oklahoma came out with something that I had to sign a consent form stating that I would not do this in my session in order to see Medicaid.
Is it for protection of the client, or is this
is their long reach of the arm of trying to make people conform to one way, or it's our way, or that's basically what it is. And I have not, to my knowledge, I have not had anyone to come to me, because I don't see that many clients as of now, or even back then when I was in an agency. So I I don't know how that's going to affect me because I'm just getting over surgery in December. So I'm kind of building back up. And I'm just, you know, I had not talked to anyone about that. Had anyone, because, this is a Bible Belt. I go between Oklahoma and Texas because my family's in Texas. And I'm here in Oklahoma, Fort Sill. So that's why I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah. And it struck me as odd, but I see where they're going because of the government administration where we're at and what's going on there, how it's trickling down to everything else. So I was just
no, that makes sense though. I'm not familiar because the state that I'm in and our policies, but I can see. I mean, that's a good example of discrimination, right? Like, I mean, it's on brand for the things that are happening, concerning the community. But I think it's unfortunate that you wouldn't be able to, be supportive in your documentation.
Thank you for that. Michael, did you want to share one last thing before I ask my question?
I was just going to offer the extra word of harmful on top of unfortunate. It's harmful.
Yes, very harmful. Absolutely.
Totally agreed. All right, so this is just my anonymous question. Then we're going to end. I'm so grateful we had this. So someone shared, can you talk about people who discover that they are queer later in life, perhaps after a process of healing that allows one to know more about themselves? And just to clarify, I think if the person's asking, how can someone heal and find themselves after they come out? Maybe one or two tips?
How can they heal and find themselves after they come out? Well, I'm always going to support therapy, to have that space to actually process their thoughts and feelings and any trauma that they experience in that process. And then what was the second part of the question?
How to We want to understand how they can understand how they can, sorry, the question was a little confusing for me, but how they can understand themselves more. Like, how can I just find myself, I guess?
How can I find myself?
Hmm.
I would definitely spend some time reflecting, getting to know yourself now, from through your own inner voice, not what anyone else told you that you should be, not through, family expectations. Just kind of spending some time with yourself. That could be through journaling, self-reflection, getting to know what I like again, getting to know what hobbies I actually enjoy, what are my likes now, what do I want to, what places would my community, where would those people show up? What environments do I need to put myself in to meet other people who are wanting to or have already begun their journey to being authentic? So that's what I would do. Definitely, having support, but also like spending some real genuine time with yourself. That could be, like I said, journaling, reading, doing some things individually, to just get to know yourself and doing some introspection.
That was very, very helpful. My number one thing is therapy. I'm going to promote therapy for every single thing. But thank you so much.
Yes.
One
You're
second.